All right, hi everybody. David Fogel, back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation. Back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast, but it's not just any podcast. As Jim Carrey would say, no, sir. No, it's not. This is podcast number 100. Pretty amazing. We started on November 1st last year with Laura Chan, and now we have 100 podcasts down, and it's been a great opportunity for me to meet everybody that we've spoken with in the symphonic arena and share all their stories with you. And today I'm joined by my compatriots, Gary Gray and Daniel Fisher. Gary is co-founder of the Symphonina Foundation with me. Daniel is an advisor to the Symphonina Foundation. They're both co-producers with me on Ascension Symphonina Rising, and they were on Advent of the Symphonina last year, which made #1 on Billboard. Gary is our mastering engineer. Daniel's composed on the album as well. Gary, Daniel, how you doing today?
We're doing good, I think.
Doing great, David. Good to be here. And number 100, that's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's also a tribute to you turning around all these podcasts that I give you and put them up on the website and put them in YouTube format so I can post them on YouTube as well. And you get them to me within about 24 hours of my handing them to you. So there's no delays. Everything's very timely, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and I get to preview all the podcasts, which is really great.
You do. You get a sneak preview of everything that's going to be public. That's all good. But anyway, I wanted to ask, let me start with Gary for a second here. So Gary, I think it was 2018.
Yep.
We met in 2017, but I had taken a Logic Pro class, my first entry into doing digital audio workstations and any of that stuff in 2016. And there was a person in that class who knew you and introduced us. And we got to talking. And I remember the first time we talked, we can say we met, I was lying down on the sofa with my phone at my ear, listening to what you do with re-records for Disney and how MIDI can be just as good or better than a live orchestra, depending on the orchestra. And how you can take something from the London Symphony Orchestra and make something out of the box, as we say, where you would have this incredibly innovative checkerboard A/B method you were telling me about even back then, where you would go between the two tracks and you couldn't tell which track you were on, and I thought it was just fascinating stuff. But at some point along the way, I came to you with a crazy idea of starting a foundation based on the idea of spreading the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world in a new format called a Symphonina, a full symphony that plays in about 10 to 12 minutes with 3 or 4 melodic movements. And then I'm really curious, what were you thinking when I did that?
I thought, like everyone else thinks, I think that we talk to when we present this idea or you present it to them, the first word that comes out of everyone's mouth, that came out of my mouth, was, "That's brilliant." And almost like, usually what comes after that is, "How come nobody thought of that before?" It's one of these pioneering kind of moments. And I just saw the whole thing flash in front of my eyes right there. I said, this is going to be a total winner. It's going to be something that's it can't be stopped as long as we just keep going. And that's what's happened in the last 7 years. So I thought it was just like everybody else, as I said. And I still think it's brilliant.
I appreciate that. You also gave me a history lesson at the time, which was that the beginning of symphonies, they were short too. And I looked it up. I looked up Mozart's 1, 2. Now, okay, when Mozart composed his first symphony, it was probably 7. So we'll give the kid a break. But, I think most of his symphonies were 10 minutes, 12 minutes. He didn't really do much beyond 20 minutes at all anyway. Really, most of his symphonies, are a few that are up in the 20 to 30-minute range. But a lot of those early symphonies were indeed just as short as symphoninas, but they grew over time. And then, Daniel, we met you through a mutual friend, Rod Sager. And I'm curious as to what your first thoughts were on this idea of a Symphonina and a Symphonina Foundation.
Well, yeah, when I first met with Rod by video, I got to learn more about you and what your mission is, what you're doing. And some of the stuff you were talking about, I've experienced. For example, my wife and I like to go to the symphony. We have our local Holland Symphony Orchestra here that we really love. And I go there, and I'm older than you, David, and I feel like I'm the youngest one there.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, and there's just not so many young people out there listening. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that, but it would be great to have more younger people in the audience listening to just gorgeous vibrant, wonderful music. And so I like the mission that the Symphonina Foundation has, and I thought more about it. And little by little, I started helping the foundation out and doing different things. And so here I am.
Well, that wouldn't be that little things is not sufficient. You are an integral part of what we do, and you're greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gary, let's talk a little bit so people get to know who's behind the scenes a little bit. What was your musical upbringing? I know you're from Cleveland and you've done a lot of drum work for me, especially on the jazz tunes that I've done over the last 8 years that we've known each other. And of course,
Yeah.
all the mastering and all that. Well, how'd you get into music?
So I built my first home studio when I was about 9 years old, and I had my little brother was my assistant engineer, Joe, and I had egg cartons on the wall, and I had a pretty sizable drum set in there. I had a vibraphone, I had a bass guitar, and I had a bunch of percussion stuff. And I later went on to win some medals of like they had in the Ohio State competition in the music world. They have a competition for every instrument, and I was winning first place as I grew up on snare drum and percussion, etc. And then I got involved in playing in many bands, polka bands, of course, from Cleveland. That was a big thing. We have the Polka Hall of Fame in my hometown of Euclid,
Not to
Ohio.
be missed.
No, that was actually a lot of fun. And then I played in rock bands, heavy metal bands. I think you and I spoke when we first met, and you were telling me that when your hair was longer and you were playing guitar and with some,
Hmm.
I guess, did you play in bands also? I think
We
we
had a
played in
we had
bands
a
growing up.
garage band. We played one
Yeah.
party that I remember very well, where Warren DeMartini from Rat, who was in my high school class, we both graduated La Jolla High class of '81. He was in the audience, which was a little bit of pressure for me, but we didn't really perform too much, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I later found out about your, virtuosity on guitar as we got into the different genres that you do, and the different recordings that I helped you mix, or you started to mix then after, because at first when we first met, I would kind of help the mixes, and then you
Yeah.
got to know a little bit more about the checkerboard AB system, did a great job on that. And then I just became the mastering engineer, and you made me look good because your mixes are so good. So,
Thank you.
but to further answer your question, I then moved on in Cleveland to the Cleveland Institute of Music. And that's where I met Chetan Tierra, who in 2022 I introduced you to and played on some Symphonina work.
Yeah, we did. He was on our first album. He played my Symphonina #2,
Hmm.
which was a piano concerto format on introducing the Symphonina.
And so he had the same kind of very similar upbringing to me in Cleveland, and he moved out here. And I think he moved very close to you,
Yeah, he's
as far as
president,
I know.
co-founder with his wife of the San Diego Piano Academy down here.
Hmm. And so it was great to kind of hook back up with Chayton because he and I had a very similar path in Cleveland, and we met there while teaching at an academy. But I played in orchestras as well. But it was at the Cleveland Institute of Music that I really got a very good foundational education on classical music, music theory. And then there was another university I went to. It's Baldwin Wallace College in Berea, Ohio, not far from where I grew up. And that had the largest collection of original Bach manuscripts in the world. How it got to Berea, Ohio, I have no idea. But somebody must have
Hmm.
been connected to somebody, and there they were. And so the teaching staff there were very, very focused on traditional, disciplined music theory. And so that was a great environment for me to kind of grow up in as well, during my studies. And then I came out to Hollywood in 1984, and within a few months, by day I was working as the promotion and marketing manager for Music Connection magazine, and by night I was playing drums at Motown Records under Berry Gordy. From there, fast forward to now, basically I did a long kind of study of production, engineering, mixing, mastering, and just countless tracks along the way. And the last 11 years I've been working for Disney and 20th Century Fox. I also, with your help, I was introduced to Justin Chart, one of the artists who's a great saxophone player on Universal Music Group, and I was able to produce, mix, and master two of his albums. And I just got a text yesterday, by the way, David, from Justin, saying that Today's Tomorrow, which is the name of one of the albums that I did for him, is now playing on 30 European radio stations. That was
Awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. Yeah.
So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Daniel, let's see. The same question. How'd you get into all this musical stuff?
Yeah, I've got a very different path, I think. When I was in high school, or actually middle school, I saved up my money and bought a Vox Continental organ and a Sears Silvertone amplifier. And when we moved to Guam, my father was in the military. We started in a rock band. And so for 2 years, 2 or 3 times a week, we played, music of the late 60s and old rock and roll stuff. And it was just wonderful. We played a lot at the local nightclubs and military bases and high schools and everything you can think of. And one of the things that I remember the most was we would often pick up our equipment and head down to one of the local naval hospitals where all these wounded soldiers were from the Vietnam War at the time. And we go set up for them and we play music for a couple hours. And it was just a great experience to play for the guys who were shot and burned and
Hmm.
broken in so many ways. And the doctors there would say that, our music was a lot more useful than a lot of the medicine that they could provide. So I
Yeah.
really learned a lot about the power of healing in music, and that stuck with me for a long time. But
Yeah.
anyway, we came to the US. I sold all my equipment and to go to college, and after
Did you sell it
college,
while you were in Guam or did you bring it back and sell it
oh, we
here?
brought it back.
Oh,
Yeah, we brought it
goodness.
back.
Okay.
The funny thing though is when we went to Guam, my brother played bass guitar and I played keyboards. When we went to Guam, none of our furniture or anything was there. It was on a boat somewhere, but my dad had somehow got some general to bring all our band equipment there on a plane. And so we walked into our new house and there was our band equipment sitting in
Huh.
the
Well,
middle
I'm
of
glad
a
the
empty
important
living
stuff
room.
made it.
Yeah, yeah. And so we actually played 2 days after we got there, which is great. So anyway, I sold my stuff, and then after college, I bought a piano, and I just started playing and writing music. And I was writing and writing and writing, and just loved to do it. And that was where my passion was. I found that as something very important to me. For example, I wrote the 4 piano pieces for my Wet Marriage Decay, and later on, I wrote the music for both of my daughter's weddings. But shortly after Kay and I were married, I had a lucky break, I would call it. I discovered something really cool called MIDI. So instead of writing by hand on, standard music notation paper, I could actually compose on the computer and hook it up to electronic digital keyboard. And I had some great scoring software, and I could write, push a button, and play the instrument. And then I could start layering instrument after instrument after instrument. And so the pieces I was composing kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until I'm composing for full orchestras. And it was really, really wonderful. And all the time I'm working in doing engineering work, so I'm doing a lot of this just on my own time. And I was doing a lot of traveling international. So when people are sleeping on the airplanes and I'm
Hmm.
writing music, that's what I did for years and decades. And
Yeah.
it's just something I have a passion for doing and love doing it. And it was really great. And I had a second lucky break 15 years ago and had a party at my house, and someone brought some uninvited guests who
Hmm.
happened to be a guy named Jan Mulder and his family. He's an internationally known composer, conductor, and pianist. And we got to talking and sharing our music, and he listened to my music and thought it was really wonderful. And why aren't I doing more with it? And so he's recording a new album like every year with big orchestras, and so the London Symphony and the Moscow Symphony and all this stuff. So he invited me to have one of my pieces performed while he was doing one of his albums. So in 2016, I recorded a piece with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And then every time he went into the studio, he'd invite me in to do one or two or three of my pieces. And how cool is that, right? For him to
Yep.
let me use the orchestra. After recording for 6 years, I had 14 pieces for a new album that I released in 2022 called Places Far Away. And I submitted that for a Grammy at the time and learned a lot about the whole Grammy process and producing albums, marketing albums, and things like that. So a lot of good stuff happening in music in the last few years.
Yeah.
And then joining up with the Symphonina Foundation has been a real joy for me.
And also, Jan's son, Gabriel, is one of our co producers and ambassador for the Symphonina Foundation. We appreciate all the help that he's given us too. Gary, I think if I remember correctly, you did some work with the Tampa Bay Symphony and other symphonies. What kind of influence has that had on maybe not so much your mastering for orchestral music, but really just your musical career, let's say, in general?
I'd say pretty huge. John Zumwalt Steffen, who was the owner and operator of Springs Theater Studio in Tampa, hired me as like the lead engineer there, and I actually lived in it. It was a 13,000 square foot facility. It was an old theater that had been transformed into a studio. Though we did do some orchestral recordings actually in the studio because the main room is 6,000 square foot. It's almost identical. We actually called it the Abbey Road of America because the way it was laid out was very similar to Abbey Road, with the control room up high, and then you walk down the stairs and you have a 6,000 square foot room. But John was the recordist for the Tampa Bay Symphony, and he said, I want to train you to take over my job. And I said, okay. So I would go out to the Tampa Bay Symphony venue, and one day, before my training was over, he had an emergency. And as sometimes happens when you make a diamond under pressure, luckily I knew enough to not screw up, and he said, I have to go. And I said, I haven't done this myself before, and you were going to show me like lessons 2 and 3. You only showed me lesson 1. He goes, no, I think I took you through most of it already. I think you're ready to go. In fact, you have to be ready to go because I have an emergency. So I want you to record the symphony. And this was under a contract where every performance had to be recorded in their archive. Mm-hmm. And so there was like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But to answer your question, it was invaluable because there's different ways of recording orchestras. As we know, in doing Symphonina recordings with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra, you can use, I don't know the number of microphones they use exactly there, but you can do close miking, where almost every instrument has a mic right near it. And then you have, medium and long-range microphones throughout the room to capture the ambiance of the room itself. But there's a traditional way also of recording an orchestra, which is with 2 microphones. And those microphones have to be placed pretty much exactly correctly to get the sonic picture of the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And that's how the Tampa Bay Symphony was recorded. And so we would go to the rehearsals, and based on if there was a soloist or this, or how many people were on the stage, just the placement of those microphones was so important. But John had this secret weapon, which is the sound field system, which has since been bought by another company. But the way it worked is you could record the orchestra, and then we went back to the studio and we'd mix and master. You could literally, with this technology, reposition and re-aim the microphones in the room. And it was through nanoseconds of delay. That was the technology that did it. And so after the recording was done, we could literally aim the mic to where he was standing. It's just unbelievable technology. And that's when I got really, really interested in researching. From that research, I came up with the checkerboard AB mixing system, thinking that I had found something that somebody else should have shown me. Mm-hmm. And I kept looking for somebody to teach me more about it, and I couldn't find anyone. And then I found out, with the encouragement of people in the industry, that I should release that as a course. So I put a course together, and it was around that time that I met you, and then you started jumping on that bandwagon.
Yes, well, your emergency situation reminds me a little bit about how I felt when we had introducing the Symphonina, because we recorded my Symphonina 1 and Symphonina 2 with Budapest before we recorded Christopher Reed and Steve Locke's with the International Symphonina Orchestra. I hadn't even thought of the International Symphonina Orchestra right at the beginning there. We just tried to do things with Budapest, and we got all those recordings. I think there were over 40 different tracks that come from them with the room mics and the spot mics. And right about that time, you had a very emergency project for Disney. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty much on my own to do all the mixing for everything. And so, every once in a while I would ask you, how does this sound? What do you think about this or that? But mostly I was just doing what you had taught me. And I think I would say, we've gotten a little bit better on fine tuning those things along the way to get to where we are now with Ascension. But yeah, I mean, everything, sometimes you learn by doing, and sometimes you learn by being told, and sometimes you get to do both under pressure. And it's great. But, it did also inspire me to have the confidence to know that the idea I had for going to get 40 different players from around the world and recording them separately in not pristine conditions in their own home studios with whatever mics they had, that I was going to have a good shot at getting a great result from it that you would feel comfortable mastering. And I do remember, there's an email I sent you where I finished the mixing, and I just said, I don't even need to ask you what you think about it. This is 100% a great mix, and go enjoy it and master it. So,
Yeah, and I think well, I remember getting that email, and I was thinking to myself, that's kind of my whole purpose in the music industry itself is not just to like do work for Disney and 20th Century Fox and to have my hand in the things, but it's also to mentor and teach up and coming musicians, and I love to see that confidence. Like when I saw the confidence in that email, I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like
yeah.
that's what I live for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We've had the great pleasure too, like you say, mentoring, not so much mentoring, but working with young composers. There's no age requirements on our Best Symphony of the Year competition, and indeed, Steve Locks, who was runner-up on the first go around, was, I think he would say fairly not a young person any more than I'm a young person, but we have had some young people, Jordan Janosko and Christopher Reed and Alexander Unseth and other people who've been finalists and submitted submissions with distinction. But it's really just been a tremendous joy. I'm sure you guys feel the same, to be able to work with them and get their pieces recorded live and share that process along the way and make constructive comments. Daniel, what's it been like for you?
Well, working with the Symphonina Foundation on these albums has been really interesting. And one of the things is you kind of got to hit it right here is one of the things I get a lot of joy from is watching young composers like Alexander Unsteth, Jordan Janosko, who are pretty unknown people when they submit to this competition and they win and they get to be on this album is really, really cool. Working with both of them and developing their pieces for the album is a pretty special thing. And seeing the final result, I mean, they're just such beautiful compositions and performances on this album. It's really kind of unbelievable. And everybody, we have five composers, and everybody is very, very different in their musical style and how they compose, and which brings a really beautiful, I think, a really beautiful element to this album is you do get this great diversity of composers. So. Yeah, it's a real joy, and I'm really proud of the two albums that I've been a part of in the last couple of years, and I think they're just wonderful, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
We're happy to have you, Daniel. It's one of those things where when we're recording with Budapest and everything is remote and we're all listening for things, we have to have incredibly good teamwork really to make
Right.
those recording sessions work well, and we really do. Between the every minute is how much money. I have no idea. I haven't done that dollars per minute thing. Zach Heidi did that once when he was recording with Budapest, but I forget what he told me. But yes, everything has to be done as efficiently as possible, and we all have stories about things where it wasn't done as efficiently as possible. We're going to leave those stories out for some other time, but there are those times. But you have to be able to recover from those times and keep going and get the result that you want, a great result. And I really want to say too, as I'm taking the lead, typically I'm coordinating with Peter Alieni, who we've worked with the last 2 years at Budapest as conductor. You're both you and Gary and Gabriel and Chris Prather too, who's also co-producer with us these last year. Have been great helping me to relay the important information to Peter and get the result that we want, and to be able to then get it back on the other side and listen to the mixes that I'm putting together, or in this year's case for Jordan did her own mixing, and be able to offer great comments along the way to get it to the level that we're all very happy with when we submit it for Grammy consideration. So thank you for that too. Daniel, what do you have planned for next year? I know one thing you have planned for next year, which is you're going to be judging some more great Symphonina contest entries at the end of this year. By the way, everybody, the Symphonina contest, the rules are up on our website at symphonina.org. And if you look for the 2025 entry rules, they're pretty much the same as they were the year before. Entries open up on November 1 and they close on December 10 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And after that, we will be engaging the services of about 20 judges, as we do each of the previous years. Many of them are Grammy friends who will volunteer their time over the holiday season to listen to what you submit. And the winning prize gets $2,000. Runner-up gets $1,000. This last year, Christopher Reed's third place entry was so close in our minds that it deserved a $500 prize as well. And we endeavor to get all of those winning entries recorded, whether that's with Budapest Scoring or the International Symphonina Orchestra, or perhaps another orchestra. We'll have to see in the future how things go, but we're very fond of Budapest Soaring, so look forward to working with them too. So Daniel, I know you're going to be involved in all that, but what else are you involved in for next year?
Well, in terms of music, I mean, the last couple of years have been a lot of focus on, the production and the marketing, for Grammy. And it takes an enormous amount of time, as you know, to do all that. And so I've been neglecting my composition. And so I'm planning for next year to really try and catch up on all these pieces I'm pretty far behind on. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. All right. Well, if I can be of any help, you let me know. Gary, what are you going to work on next year?
Coming up this next year, one of the things that I'm doing is a new approach to music licensing. So it's a new approach to music licensing, and it's called "You Score the Scene." And I've been collaborating with a number of filmmakers and getting my kind of my right foot in the film world and my left foot staying in the music world. And so there'll be more projects coming up there where we're going to be actually getting footage from filmmakers, and we're going to interface getting those that footage to composers, and they can actually score to the scene and then submit that full package back to the filmmaker, which hasn't been done before in the music or film industry. So I'm very excited about that. We've been beta testing it for about eight months now. In fact, I think I mentioned to you the other day, David, that I have a number of filmmakers that I've been telling them, hey, I've got some great classical symphonic music for you already
Yeah.
packaged and ready to go.
Yeah, indeed.
know?
Indeed. Yep.
So that's one thing. And then, one thing I just wanted to say, which doesn't really answer your question, but I thought, I didn't want to allow this podcast to go without mentioning this. It was kind of a bittersweet moment, but mostly sweet. And that is when we hit #1 on Billboard last year. And again, I wanted to, Daniel, thank you personally for all the work that you do behind the scenes, because you're incredible and incredibly important to the Symphonina Foundation. And to me, I feel really lucky to be working with you and David, and feel that that's a huge part of why we hit our #1 on Billboard last year in August with advent of the Symphonina. And when we did that, I had been being mentored and became a close friend of Quincy Jones over the years. And I didn't realize it at the time. I had a little bit of idea of this, that, his health was starting to deteriorate before he passed away. And knowing that gave me more impetus to contact him. So I called, because sometimes we'll just talk on the phone. He's had me over at his house. He wasn't able to come to the phone, but I said, hey, can you get a message to Quincy that, and I told him about the Symphonina album and that we had won #1. And then I called back a couple days later and I said, did Quincy get that message? That the Symphonina album, Advent of the Symphonina, hit #1 on Billboard. And he said, yes, he did get the message. And he said, thank you. So though I didn't hear it directly from him, just wanted to share that moment, because
Nice
to
to
me
know.
that was like
It's
a
good.
very important moment.
Yeah. I'm hoping there'll be some Quincy Jones tribute entries in the Grammys. I have not seen an FYC. I hope I haven't missed something that came across my desk, but I haven't seen one. So maybe that's still something that would be something you might want to pick up, Gary.
Yeah, I was surprised also, David, to see. I figured there'd be at least one,
Yeah.
unless there's one out there. I haven't seen
Well,
it. Yeah.
I give you every encouragement. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know if I do, we'll all be involved in that one for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, there we
Yeah, I'd
go.
just like to add one more
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so I wanted to show my appreciation for musicians. And I've been really lucky and fortunate to record with some wonderful orchestras, including the London Symphony Orchestra and the London Philharmonic Orchestra and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra as well. And when I recorded my first piece with an orchestra, it was with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra at Abbey Road Studios. And there were 65 musicians in that room. But what I see is more than an orchestra, is each of those people in that room have their own story. So when I look at the face of any individual musician, say a violinist or harpist, I know there's a story there that I can't know. Maybe they've been practicing and perfecting their skills in craft for 30 years, maybe 40 or 50 or more. And for, literally decades, have been practicing every day and perfecting their skills with a lot of passion for that instrument and performing on it. So think about this. Say the 65 musicians with an average of, say, 35 years of training, practice, performing with the incredible passion for what they do. Well, that adds up to over 2,000 years of experience in that room. About to play a piece that I composed. How cool is that? But over 2,000 years, like that's since the time of Christ. So it's kind of mind-boggling how much raw talent is present. Then they all come together as an orchestra with each musician making their individual contribution. And then for this brief moment in time and space, all this talent and passion converges into this 4-minute piece of music that we get to share with the world. It's really quite extraordinary. So anyway, for all musicians, whether big orchestra, chamber music, high school orchestra, rock band, soloists, whatever, cheers to you. I greatly appreciate you and have tremendous respect for what you do.
We would be nothing without the musicians, Daniel.
Exactly.
We would be nothing without the musicians. We live in wonderful times. We can lament the times sometimes, but we live in wonderful times. And hopefully, with our efforts and those of us around us, we'll help keep making them better. So, Gary, Daniel, thank you so much for all your help over the years and the years to come. I greatly appreciate it. And I know many other people who enjoy what we do at the Symphonina Foundation will enjoy it too. And personally, if there's anything I can ever do to help either of you, you know that I'm always here for you. And we're going to listen to some more of Daniel's great music on the way out. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, Gary, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get in touch with me would be gary@teammusiclicensing.com.
Okay. And Daniel, how about you?
DanielFisherMusic.com, my website.
Okay, DanielFisherMusic.com. And you're very likely to hear from us during the next 2 weeks. If you're one of those ones who's listening to this podcast, you'll probably get a message from one of us asking if you'd like to receive our FYC for Ascension, Symphonina Rising, submitted for Best Classical Compendium, and also our FYC for my Symphonina No. 3, performed by the International Symphony Orchestra and submitted for Best Orchestral Performance, and also featuring Steinway artist and our friend Sofia Agranovich on the piano. Sofia, we greatly appreciate you. And to our listeners and all the Symphonina fans out there, as Tom Cruise would say, we made all this music for you, and we hope you enjoy it. Gentlemen, thank you again.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.